What's up, everybody? Thanks so much for joining me on the next episode of In the Pink. And if you are not familiar with what that term means, that is a term that was coined way back in the 1500s, before pink was even a color. And it had to do with wishing someone their optimum health and happiness. So this week we are gonna look at gut health and vaginal health, and we're gonna look at how that relationship ties together. But first, we're always gonna start out with the what we know. So my first what we know that the gut microbiome gets a lot of attention. And while it is currently in the spotlight, there are also other microbiomes going on within our body. So our skin, our mouth, our nose, our eyes, and even our vagina. And my second what we know that just like our gut, the vagina has millions, if not billions, if not trillions of microbes that populate it. In fact, more than 50 different species even populate the vaginal tract. And my last what we know that the lactobacillus strain is prevalent when it comes to the vagina, keeping it healthy and free from infection. And not only that, but the levels of lactobacillus in our gut are correlated to the levels of lactobacillus in the vagina. So by taking care of one, you're taking care of the other. All right, let's move on. Let's move on to the gut's role in all this. All right, so how we're gonna tackle this is we're gonna go over 3 basic categories. The first thing, our gut microbiome basically acts as a reservoir for bacteria, right? Either good or bad, meaning pathogenic. And many of these pathogens we worry about disrupting this vaginal microbiome. So for example, Candida, Prevotella, and even E. coli. We want to keep this community of pathogenic bacteria very stable. We don't want it overrunning the commensal or good bacteria. The second thing, inflammation. And if I've said it once, I've said it 100 times. Chronic low-grade levels of inflammation leads to a higher prevalence of chronic disease. And it's no different in this arena. And the third thing, our gut microbiome also plays a huge role in hormones, even changing the levels of hormones, estrogen being one of them. And estrogen is a key player in the health of a vaginal microbiome. So it should be obvious we're gonna park here for a little while and talk about estrogen in a little bit more depth. Estrogen is an essential hormone for many reasons, but especially because it provides a food source for our commensal or our good gut bacteria. So when estrogen levels go up, like in pregnancy or even during a woman's cycle, levels of lactobacillus also go up because there's been an increase in their food supply. And that food source is called glycogen. And on the flip side, when estrogen levels start to decrease, like during perimenopause and menopause, that food source is gonna go down. That is creating a more optimum environment for pathogens to colonize because that vaginal environment is less protective overall. Also, these falling estrogen levels are a chief cause of vaginal dryness and vaginal atrophy. They're connected. As a woman ages, these changes in hormone production are going to cause the vaginal walls to thin, atrophy. Thinner walls mean fewer cells to secrete moisture, and that in turn leads to vaginal dryness. And this symptom is pretty widespread. Up to 20% of women that are still cycling experience this vaginal dryness, and up to 83% of women that are in this postmenopause phase. It's kind of a big, miserable deal. And that's not the only thing. When lactobacillus levels start to decrease, that allows these other bacteria to increase and take up that space. Imbalance, dysbiosis. So this dysbiosis can cause bacterial vaginosis. And women that experience this imbalance have higher numbers of many different species of bacteria rather than this lactobacillus, when compared to healthy women who have a lower number of fewer species. And this shift causes the pH level to increase rather than stay low and acidic. But it's not all bacterial. We can also get yeast issues, right? A yeast infection. Having too little of this lactobacillus causes fungus or candida to overgrow and cause this yeast infection. Dysbiosis can also increase the chances of developing a urinary tract infection. You see how this is all tied in together? Okay, let's move on to some quick case in points here. There happens to be more and more evidence emerging that probiotics help with both this atrophy and, of course, this dryness. So for baseline studies, in the first study, menopausal women were found to have lower levels of this lactobacillus present, which was directly associated with this atrophy. On the other hand, if we have probiotics taking residence in our gut, then they are changing the community of this environment. And this is going to prevent communities like E. coli from overpopulating and then moving in to the vaginal tract or even to this UTI situation. So in another study, they just said it out loud that lactobacillus probiotic strains were credited with positively altering the vaginal microflora, which in turn prevented these vaginal infections, specifically in postmenopausal women with absent or decreased estrogen. Okay, let's wrap this up with a couple more studies. There was a smaller study done in 1996 where they had a population of women who were consuming lactobacillus acidophilus rich probiotic yogurt. And they did conclude that these women had more of this lactobacillus acidophilus populating the vaginal microbiome. These women also experienced less episodes of bacterial vaginosis compared to women who were not using this probiotic yogurt. So these results basically suggest that there is this correlation, that the lactobacillus has a protective effect against vaginal imbalance. And one more pretty fascinating study. There was a smaller group of women with this bacterial vaginosis. All these women were given an antibiotic course for 7 days. Half of these ladies also added a probiotic in with that antibiotic course, and the other half did not. And wouldn't you know it, that after 30 days of continuing on this probiotic, the cure rate was 90% in those women who were also using the probiotic as opposed to the ones that were not. They only had a 30% cure rate. No surprise there. And wouldn't you know, they're even dabbling in this microbiome manipulation business where they take the microbiome from fecal cells from a healthy woman and they transplant that into a woman who is struggling with one of these infections. And the results are coming back very promising. These women are able to fight off the bacteria that was caused by the imbalance. All right, it's time to move on. Let's move on to some healthy practices. What are some things we can be doing on a daily basis to keep our gut microbiome healthy, which in turn keeps our body as a whole healthy? Well, the first thing we always touch on is diet, and this is no different than any other week. Eating foods that are rich in probiotics and prebiotics is just vital to our diet. And that is going to encapsulate fermented foods. So things like pickles or sauerkraut, kimchi, miso, yogurt, and even kombucha. Eating whole foods is important. Fiber-rich foods, high-quality protein sources. All these are going to play into a healthier gut microbiome. The next one we always cover is taking foods out of our diet that are detrimental. Sugar. You need to be mindful about the amount of sugar you're intaking in your diet. And that also goes along with processed foods. These foods are feeding this remnant of pathogenic bacteria that we want to keep in this stable little community. We don't want it overgrowing the rest of our gut microbiome. And of course, we want to meet all our nutrition needs, but we also want to work on other areas that are known to be gut wreckers. Stress being a number one. It messes up our hormone levels. It shoots cortisol into our system. We need to learn how to manage stress. We also want to be balancing our blood sugars, and we want to be keeping inflammation levels low in our body. And we can't do all of that with diet, which is why I highly recommend you consider supplementation. Lactobacillus acidophilus happens to be the most studied and the most prevalent when it comes to vaginal health. But there's two more strains also, Lactobacillus reuteri and Lactobacillus rhamnosus. And the scientists out there believe these three specific strains help maintain this balance by sticking to the vaginal wall and just making it more difficult for harmful strains to grow. In fact, they're even thinking that this lactobacillus may adhere to these harmful strains, killing them and preventing them to spread. Did you add yogurt to your shopping cart yet? And this is gonna roll us right into the best part. Let's talk Plexus. Let's talk Plexus and how Plexus can serve a critical role in your supplementation. Well, first and foremost, we always cover the TRIPLEX. The cornerstone product remains cornerstone for a reason. It tackles cellular inflammation, it tackles blood sugar stability, and gut health. The TRIPLEX consists of the cornerstone pink drink, Slim. And the microbiome variety specifically has a prebiotic fiber in there to feed the probiotics we're planting with the PROBIO 5. That is our premium probiotic that not only has 5 strains of good commensal bacteria, but it also has an enzyme blend in there to help control overgrowth of yeast, fungus, candida, call it what you may. And the last thing in the TRIPLEX is the BIOCLEANSE. This one is an oxygenated magnesium supplement paired with vitamin C and sodium bicarbonate, meant to give your body the magnesium it desperately needs, but also give your body a gentle daily cleanse, ridding it of the bacteria we want pushing through our system. On to the next one, VITALBIOME. This is gonna introduce 8 different strains of bacteria, giving us some diversity, which is really important in our gut. This is not an either or, this is an add-on product. It goes paired well with the PROBIO 5 and the complete TRIPLEX system. Now I'm gonna throw you a curveball, MetaBurn. MetaBurn is for adrenal support. So when we talk about balancing hormone levels, managing stress, that is all tied in together. MetaBurn is not only a fat burner, not only a metabolism booster, but it balances your adrenals. And the last one I'm going to touch on today is the X Factor Plus vitamin. Nutrition is so imperative in all of this, and we are not getting what we need from our diet. Try as we may, our food sources are depleted from where they were decades and generations ago. Adding a quality vitamin and mineral supplement that is fully methylated, bioavailable, your body knows what to do with it. All right, you guys, that's all I have for you this week. Thanks so much for hanging with me till the very end. And if you are new to this Plexus train and have no idea what I am talking about, I'm gonna list in that description box my link. Get on there, nose around, ask me some questions. Curiosity will get you on this train every time. I'm also gonna list in that description box some videos I've done in the past. Videos that are covering the products we've talked about today, videos that are more related to menopause in general, and the current playlist in the pink's gonna be right here. So if you've not caught all those episodes, they'll be easy for you to sort through. And you might just wanna join me here again next week, because what happens in the gut does not stay in the gut. It affects everything, which is gonna lead into many more episodes of In the Pink.